Make It of a Marketer back for a Monday episode. And if you're watching the video stream, you know that what this means. It means that the cat episodes are back, Jess. And, we had a lot of insight on our last feature. We had MD Riley, my former boss, and it got us to wanting to almost do a little bit of a follow up with just us to talk a little bit about community building, talking about the longevity of the impact you leave as a marketer and what does that mean internally to marketing rooms. Loop that in with a little Sydney Sweeney controversy at the end of last week, and here we are, Jess, to kick off another Monday episode.
Yes, the continuation. And we learned that when you're looking at the LinkedIn Live experience, you like to listen to us while looking at Andy's cats versus just looking at us and listening to us. So, and that's okay. We're good with that. We like to look at Andy's cats as well.
So we like to do this when it is a non-guest episode to mix it up a little bit. So it's all voice, with cat imagery as it goes back and forth, as you'll see Jackson and Pickle both featured here today. So, Jess, let's kick this off because I know you had the idea for this episode and some of the learnings and continuations we wanted to do. So tell me what you're thinking, what you're vibing, and let's start this Monday marketing conversation.
Yeah, just based on our conversation last week in your hot take post and this idea that as marketers we should be uplifting and supporting each other, like in any community, just uplifting each other, supporting and just supporting our objectives, creativity, all of it. And right now we're currently in this environment where it seems like people are really going after each other, and people are not liking things, and they're sharing it on social, and it's like almost an attack of the community. So I thought, what if we talked more about, like, as marketers, like what makes us marketers and what type of culture do we want to pass on to the next generation of marketers. So if we looked at legacy in that way and we looked at it as like a cultural phenomenon in that way, maybe we would form a stronger community. And then I was also thinking too, because I could really go deep into this, because I think this is what we try to do with the making of a marketer as well, is just, again, like having that deep understanding, not only of what our customers are doing, but like taking a step back and then also like putting it on us, like having a deep understanding of what makes a marketer. And so I would think, if we're looking at legacy, we're looking at what we're going to pass down to the future generation of marketers. The worst scenario would be, passing down the money and not passing down the culture and the lessons that we've learned throughout our journey.
And I think you hit on a good spot where we can really start on this here, Jess, is I think that I would say in marketing, there's a lot of types of marketing. So there's obviously your TV marketing from several years ago. There's print, there's newspaper, there's radio. And a lot of what we talk about on our program, just by proxy of what we do, is a lot more of the social and digital media style of marketing, which in comparison, you could really say, like, the whole like paid marketing thing, like big money thing, Jess, you could say that's less than 10 years old as it relates to social media. People started to hit the boost button 10 years ago on Facebook in much less time than that when it comes to other platforms. Now, I know there were some outliers, but I'm talking just like the mainstream approach to actually hiring this and paying people this. So we're talking about an industry that you go 10 years ago, you're looking at roles that either didn't exist or they weren't very understood, to now we're looking at roles where, they're paid as high as anybody in the marketing room at times, depending on where you look at. They're making the big decisions. They're the go-to people now. So what are you trying to pass down in terms of skills, industry experience, marketing vibes, all of those good things? And how are you doing it still when there's a lot of money involved, a lot of critiques involved, and like, we saw, just with the different marketers kind of going at each other, something like that Sydney Sweeney campaign, for instance, that's not something that probably gets in front of everybody's eyes, at least on social media, 10 years ago. So now there's just a lot more eyes and a lot more dollars on everything you do, and a lot more scrutiny that goes along with it. So, like, how are you managing that? How are you passing it down to your team? Or are we all just playing Game of Thrones in the marketing room to try to, like, hit that next big thing? And, as you say with marketers, you can either be that 1% genius or the 1% narcissist in the marketing room. And sometimes they tend to be really close together.
Yes. So, in order to really build our community for the better, I really think it's important that we do sit down as teams and really build out this moral framework for a marketer. I think it's not something that we're focused on right now. And if we put the focus on it and we invest in our culture, uh, as well as investing in our resources and our campaigns and our customers, we're going to be in a much better position.
I mean, you think about it here, Jess, like the ultimate KPI, and that's our customers' return on ad spend, all of those good things. But what is the real kind of continuity to that is being able to maintain your team. So as you and I consult around the nation, we see the variations of teams and how quickly they're changing, downsize, people changing jobs, new management every other year. It's really hard to pull off award-winning campaigns and really brand structure over the long haul if there's a lot of changes happening. So it really does start with the culture. So even if you're viewing this, let's say, as a CMO, CEO from a business angle, not really viewing it through a culture angle, which I still think you should view it through a culture angle, but let's say you don't, there's still there's a business attribute to wanting to do this right, because that retains a team that sticks together, not a team that's going to be plug and play where you don't really have a full team for years and years because you're always replacing different components of it.
Yes. So I think it's really important to look at building out your team's mission and your team's vision. So not just looking at the organization, that's still very important, but again, as a team of marketers, super important to look at that. And there are questions that you can ask yourselves as a team to start building this out and building it together. Don't just rely on leadership and the marketing executives to do this. I think it's really important to come together as a group. And you can look at things like, what slogans from the marketing campaigns that have most influenced your team's journey. Like, what are the best slogans? Like what really resonates with you? So looking at slogans, like, do you know your team's stories of your best and your worst campaigns? So like there's this idea of like sharing the customer story, but it's like, do you know like your own story? So it's like, does now the American Eagle team, how are they going to be talking about this is Sydney Sweeney campaign? Like, do they know the story now, or how is this going to be passed down? Like the learnings from this, and then like what are the teams? What are your marketing traditions? Like, how does the team celebrate? How does the team build, create? Like, is there something that you do before you start the ideation process on a campaign or a concept? And just, again, like taking pen to paper and really starting to think about it. I think we just get into the motions. And like you said, like we're going straight to the money. We're going straight to just delivering. And it would really benefit us to just take a step back, take a beat, and then like start writing these things down. And that's going to help us get closer to our mission and like and our purpose.
So let's talk about that with lasting impact, because you bring up a good point now of how all this now starts to follow American Eagle. But I'll take you back to a prior example on this. Remember when Wendy's switched up and on Twitter they were just going at people? They were having going gift crazy. And I remember they had there was one day a year where you could at them and they would basically, it was like a diss day. They would diss everybody that replied to them with a custom reply. And like, just this is a huge pivot. Like when you start going into this kind of like shock value, and there's going to be a lot of critics. The thing is, we all glamorize Wendy's right now, but if you took this back 8 years ago, there was a lot of marketers that were slamming the direction that they were going on digital, that it was unprofessional, it didn't follow any type of code, it was kind of like, oh, there's some quote intern just firing off responses, it doesn't follow brand. Like it was heavily scrutinized, but now we know Wendy's as that brand. So if I think about American Eagle, if this is like a pivot that they're going to do the play on words, that they're going to back celebrity influencers, that, I still don't find that as controversial as even what Wendy's did, to be fair. But if this is like a new tone they're setting for their brand, is this something now you continue on with? Because you can't keep flipping and flopping. And I think that's what you and I see a lot with these brands, is they kind of like go a direction, then reverse it. And there's a new person, it's a completely different message now. So how do you pass the learnings on from this style of campaign to where maybe, let's say, it's 6 months from now, and instead it's like Dua Lipa has good genes? Like, I don't know. I'm just making it up. Do you carry that on? And I'm real curious what they do with that.
Totally. And that, so that's where we can take it a step further, a little deeper. You brought up a really good point. So you think about, and you can do this individually. And I did it. And this is a prompt for you, Andy, because I didn't tell you that we were going to go this direction. But you first look at, where are you thriving as a marketer? And you think about certain words. So I'll share with you my words. And so these are the words that like really resonate with me, and where I feel like happiness and joy in what I'm doing as a marketer. So helpful, customer-centric, empathetic, deep understanding, caring, thoughtful, playfulness, curiosity, and clarity. So then you look at those, and then you can bring that into your team environment.
How do you show that?
Yes, and then that's, again, we're building to the mission. We're just like putting the steps in, putting our reps in to get to the mission and vision. But those are things that's like first looking at yourself, and then bringing that to the team and seeing like, okay, does the team agree, or like what are the things that we can add to this list, and really show where we thrive as a team. Yep.
And with that, you almost now build something the team's believing in, correct? Like, hey, you launch this marketing campaign, whether people love it, hate it, everything in between, if the team's bought into the mission now by their own attributes, that can kind of like now get it to, move forward, and they feel comfortable with whatever is to happen next. Now, here's the thing I would ask you, Jess, is what if you find your team's like all over the place in their values, and they're like starkly different? Like, what's the next step to get that alignment? If you were to launch something that especially has a little pizzazz to it that can get some critique.
Oh, Andy, great segue. You led me right into it. So then you start to look at, like, think of these as data points, and then you start to look at, are there contradictions? Are there trends? Are there similarities? Like, what is surprising you? So then I looked at all these words, and I came up with 3 sentences, just like trying to get a better understanding of, like, again, what is this? What are these words mean? What's the purpose? What are they saying? And I'm realizing that I like meaningful conversations that make you or the customer think differently. I like building messages that inspire you or the customer to be more resilient. And then I was thinking specifically with the playfulness, I always have to do a plug for power players, right? And yes. I was thinking from Jocelyn and my perspective, like we want to be a team of marketers that shows how play at work can benefit you or or the customer or the employee, as far as like building stronger values and just overall longevity. So that would be my recommendation. And like when you come back together as a team to start again to find to make that leap from from the data to then like again what is this saying about us, and try to like build out some sentences on what this actually means.
And then you start to relate that to the customer.
Yes.
And that might be where your chat, no, Jess, that might be where your chat GPTs and AI come in. Because
Yeah.
we haven't thought about this. Like a lot of people start with the AI, they start with plugging stuff in and AI, tell me what to do. What if you already kind of know your team, your outputs, your goals? Like you've tried to find this alignment amongst peers, and then you actually start crafting it a little bit from there. You know, what is a messaging statement that would align to these key points?
Totally. And yeah, you're basically thinking again, yeah, before you jump to the AI, you really do need to be cognizant and just really be thoughtful and thinking about like what do you want your marketing to be?
So, thinking now, let's talk about the legacy and the community and what
Yeah.
that leaves behind. So, the way I'm reading this is you're trying to leave together, something that is long lasting within the company, the customers, like they know this company is for X and Y. And again, you talk about it's a culture that's kind of starts to pass down, like themes of posts, like different things like that. And I've done that as a social media manager before where, hey, I developed the program, moved on to something new, and here's kind of what we did and why we did it. And I've seen the social media managers that would come in afterwards, they would make some tweaks to it. But there were times, even 3 years later, I could see kind of the vision I had still living somewhere. And that's kind of cool. It's kind of like the whole word I use a lot when I built my career as being an ambassador to the game of social media. So it's something that anybody that puts in the work, the learnings, the education, that they can make a career out of this and be able to educate, inspire, do those types of things with it. So I think about that, and how we leave things behind. But I do often wonder, Jess, as we have this important conversation, if that's even brought up in marketing rooms right now, because so much is about short-term wins, and there's a little thought about long-term culture. But to our points here, if you think about all these big brands, the Coca-Colas of the world, they don't need to depend on short-term wins because they've built a culture to where they basically don't need that. Their brand overpowers any type of like jolt that you have to get over a 6-week period.
Totally. I completely agree. And that's where the best case scenario is where, from a legacy standpoint, you're passing down the money and you're passing down the marketing culture. And you're right. This is why we're talking about it today. And this is where I think we can build a stronger community. I don't think we're talking about this enough in the marketing rooms. So just think about, again, like how easily it would have been for you, or much more easy for you to see your vision being carried through like years later in some of those social campaigns that you did, if when you first were going through this exercise and you wrote out your words and you wrote out your sentences, like you actually put that in your marketing room or in your office and you have that up almost like what were those posters where it was like the motivational posters. I mean, you don't even have to get that cheesy, but you know what I'm talking about, where it was like
Yeah,
teamwork and it was like someone on
like
a
a
mountain.
elementary school classroom.
Yes, but even just like writing the words down on a whiteboard or a piece of paper and like putting it up on the wall or even framing it, or and then writing the sentences down, how like however deep you want to go. But then if you have that up and you're always looking at it, then again the team can talk about it. They can reference it in the room. They can tie it back to, the old campaigns, to like to think about how they want the new campaigns to look. Like, again, everything is going back and tied to that vision, to that mission, to like to your purpose. And that is what's going to create the legacy, and ensure that a legacy continues, and it's going to connect you even deeper to your community, to your customers.
And let's say that you do the exercise now, and maybe like to someone else, like, hopefully that aligns with the 8, 12 person marketing team, but maybe it also is a key in for someone else that, hey, I don't have alignment with all of my marketing team, but this is something I would like to fight for and maybe implement into it. Or if you can't, maybe that's something you do as a side hustle, because, I think both of us are realistic that you don't always get the perfect scenario. But if you start doing these exercises, it helps you maybe find those pivots, maybe within your org or your side hustle, whatever that might be, to like help you get to that as a marketer. But so much of, I feel like the marketing discussion right now, again, it's short-term wins, and it's about how are we infusing some sort of new technology. And I think if you go down that rabbit hole, you go down the rabbit hole of losing to the highest spender consistently. And, that's just, unfortunately, if you want to try to break through, there has to be some creative outlet. There has to be something that connects with the customer. And I think for marketers, they have to have some passion that's involved in it. I'll always remember, Jess, one of our biggest episodes very early on in the podcast was our Workday episode. Remember how passionate they were about their Super Bowl campaign and why that campaign stood out? There is a number of Super Bowl campaigns with tons of money, and they probably worked to some degree to the highest bidders, but I forgot 9 out of 10 of them. But I definitely remembered the Workday Rockstar campaign, and when we talked to someone within that marketing team, you could see the passion that was there. So they took that time, in my opinion, to probably understand what that team could execute and then built around it.
Yes, it was with Eric Peterson, and it's still living. I've seen
3
the
years
legacy,
later.
yes, of this campaign continue forward, and they now have concerts, and they're featuring new rock stars every year, and it is pretty incredible. But you're right. I think right now, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's the focus. Remember, it's the worst case scenario where you're
Yep.
passing down the money. The legacy is with the money, but you're not in not every case. I mean, there are some cases where this is happening, but it's just the money and not the marketing culture. And we gotta pass them both down if we want a lasting legacy.
So just to conclude this, Jess, and let's put a bow tie on it now for our VPs or CMOs who are listening. How do you start this? What is step one to get that conversation going? You got 28 different things you're trying to do. Your calendars are full. You have to meet a short-term goal. How do you get this at the beginning of maybe your half cycle, your yearly cycle? Like what gives it a go, and what gets the buy-in from the team to want to go through this exercise?
One, just take a step back and realize as well that you can be a team player, and you can help your team, you can help your culture by bringing this to your leadership as well. It doesn't just, I mean, it definitely would be more influential if it came from the top down, but it also can come from the bottom up as well. So I would say whether you're an individual contributor or you're the leader, you get the team together and you start to brainstorm, you start to ideate, you're taking a beat here. Again, like what do you celebrate? Like what are your marketing traditions as a team? How do we share our stories on the best and worst campaigns? And I got my third question. And then like what are outside influences that have really had an impact on the team? So like looking specifically at slogans from other marketing campaigns that really resonate with the team. So starting there, just having that conversation. And then part two. So first you have the conversation, you're setting the context, you're just at least starting to talk about it and starting to write things down. That's very important. And then second part, starting to look at like, okay, how can we take that information, and then how can we take like our current values and beliefs and start to write out a statement.
Yeah.
So then looking again at an individual, like what are, like how are you thriving as a marketer? What words stand out? What words represent thriving as a marketer? And then talking about that, and then doing that individually, and then coming together as a team.
And I'd like to take this one step further. Let's take this even just out of inside your team, and something that I would challenge marketers to do right now. So let's say if you're someone that's like hot taking these campaigns that are out there, before we just abolish the campaign, maybe a good way to think about this is send a LinkedIn message to someone that is running this campaign, it's this hot take audience, and ask to have a coffee chat, virtual coffee chat, and go in with the mindset that you always talk about, just the curiosity mindset. Why did they do the campaign this way? What are their metrics? What do they need to succeed with? Why did they choose this particular influencer? Did they even know it would be controversial, or was that an oversight? And then maybe you align your values from your learnings and take that back to your marketing room. You might be like, heck no, I wouldn't do any of that. Or you might be like, okay, I kind of understand why they did that for that particular customer. And then you could start to apply those learnings with that. You know, that's something I'm trying to get better at. We do it on the podcast. So I like just having coffee chats and learning why people do things. Because, you know, like we said, we might come out of it, it doesn't align with us at all. But it doesn't always mean the marketing vision was wrong either. There's going to be 100 marketing rooms that do 100 things a different way. But this type of curious learning mindset, I think, can help us in a lot of different aspects of our marketing journeys.
It's really funny. I was going to recommend that this week, you and I sit down and do this for ourselves and for the podcast. But based on just what you're saying, I actually think you and I are very much aligned with, again, like we like to have meaningful conversations that make people think differently. And then we also like I don't know if it's necessarily with the messaging, but or again with the conversations, but we do like to inspire people to be more resilient. I think those two things, that would be our vision.
I just like to tell them to go do things. I know it sounds crazy. You don't got to liquid death it, but go do the things. Like, don't get stuck in this, you know, method of just rinse and repeat marketing, or buying ads, or doing the same creatives that we've seen 15 of our competitors do. I think that's really kind of the education mindset, kind of that inspiration aspect. And we still have that juice to bring it to the table. But I think that's something that if you're a marketer and want to leave a legacy behind, I think you got to find that juice a little bit. Because if it's rinse and repeat, you know, you ask what your legacy is, what your resume play is, what your oomph is going forward, I think it's going to be around that, like how you've really shaped what the brands do. And it's just a great talking point. Also, just beyond that, I think something to be proud of. I feel like a lot of our creative marketers, it's what they initially got in the game for. They're trying to still find that. But Jess, I know we're here at time. I think a great discussion for us, great discussion for other marketing rooms to have. And I think a fun follow-up as we start to do these bosses episodes, that we can kind of follow up with a little bit and kind of expand on our talk tracks and put some cats on our videos.
Yes, we'll continue that. I think we're almost there with the statement. We'll have our statement refined for the next episode. I mean, we're really there. I'll add an action item to it, because that's such a good point. I totally believe in that as well. And
I got to think of some of my words too. So I'll have
think
some
of your words
for
and see. But I think, just again, based on what you were saying, I think we're so much more aligned than than we thought we were. But again, it's just good that we're again taking a step back and having the conversation. That is the starting place. Having
Yes.
the conversation and starting to take pen to paper and writing things down.
Well, we'll keep that rolling on for our next episode coming soon. And otherwise, thank you all for taking a journey with us when it comes to marketing legacy, community, and how to even start that conversation in your marketing rooms. And we'll be back soon. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.